All right, let's see. All right. Sup, Red? Just getting live sent out. But hope everyone's had a good day so far. Yep. Literally just started. What's up, Lou? Yes, you did. Made it right at the beginning. But she's taken care of the doggo. Literally, she just got off work. No, Red, I need to update my web camera. Right now, I'm just using my built-in laptop. Probably because it's with it taking up the full screen, it's a little bit more obvious that it's a lower quality camera. But hopefully we get some good conversations. I've had a lot of fun going over the model contingency argument. And kind of exploring it a little bit. What I want to do next is actually go into the divine hiddenness problem. It's definitely something that needs to be talked about. But at the same time, I'm always hesitant to talk about it because I don't want it to diminish people's experiences, because it's a real real thing that they're going through, and it's painful for a lot of them, and just want to make sure that I'm treating it with the respect and dignity it deserves. But hopefully we get some good people in requesting up. So yeah, like if you're over the age of 18 and you either have an argument that you want help working through, or even just have a general question about Catholicism, be more than happy to have a conversation with you and talk about it. But thank you everyone for the support already. Thank you, Lou and Oppo, for the support, for the shares and the gifts. But yeah, Ogar and I actually are planning on something. It's still very early in the works for Amit, but we're thinking of possibly doing some kind of collaboration, but we're not sure on what exactly yet. We got a couple of ideas. But well, I don't know if we can call ourselves a duo, Red, because we're approaching this from two different perspectives. But I guess we could be like the embodiment of horseshoe theory, where the farther apart you are on two extremes, the closer you are together, as opposed to the middle. But currently don't have anyone requesting up. But if you have an argument or question or just something that you're trying to get better understanding as far as Catholicism, feel free um, to join up. I try to finish up in about be on for about 2 hours. So an hour most likely, and but past an hour probably not. But let's see. But yeah, I'm trying to do these daily. It's going to be around the same time, Marky. Or I should say during the week. I try to take the weekends off to take care of other stuff. But yeah, if anyone's got any, there's someone working in the yard, and of course they don't like it. But if there's anything y'all want me to yap about, let me know. And Lou, it all works out because she has me cook. What's funny is it started off as CT stay out of the kitchen, and now it's, oh, can you please make this? And make this meal. I like the way you do this. The only thing she doesn't know, because you tell me to, what was it, to cook the, was it yesterday, cooked the pork chops, and I was going to be doing the scalloped potatoes, but you wanted to help out with that. But yeah, this is friendly space. So even if you're not a Catholic or you disagree, I'm not going to push you on it. I'm not going to convince you to become Catholic, or but yeah. Let's see. What should I yap about? For Ethan Muse, I actually haven't checked into his content at all. So, and I know that Ian speaks very highly of Ethan. But my understanding of it, he takes the approach from looking at the evidential evidence from miracles. And while I don't like argument from miracles, if anyone does have the right approach for miracles, it's the way that Ethan Muse does it, from my understanding, where he's doing it not just from a singular event. So he's like, for example, he's not just saying the miracle of the dancing sun from Fatima, but he's taking all of the different miracle accounts and combining them together and saying, even if each individual doesn't work, the total summation of it helps support it. But we do have a guest, Mr. Biscuit. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, how old are you?
I'm 39.
All right, and what brings you up here today?
You said Apologetics Workshop, request up if you want to work on an argument.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I have an argument that I'm working on.
Okay.
Well, I guess it would be more of like a demonstration than an argument. I think a demonstration might be more powerful than an argument, at least hopefully so.
Just to let you know, demonstrations are harder to do, but let's go through it.
Sure. Now, this is a demonstration of the existence or of the presence of God,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully. And so I would start by asking my interlocutor to tell me about an object that's around them. So if you want to pick any object, let me know what the object is.
So you want to be careful in arguments for asking questions, because an argument should stand on its own. I know like people like using the Socratic method, but the Socratic method is meant to be a teaching tool where you're helping the person along. Whereas with an argument, you're trying to demonstrate the truth of your position. So instead of
Right.
saying what I was going to
Yeah,
say,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
you're fine. So instead of saying like pick an object, what you would do is say something like there exists object X, exists object X, and so like just to play along a little bit, let's say I picked a mouse, the computer mouse. So I picked an object X, the computer mouse.
Okay. Did you want me to continue?
Yeah. So continue on, and then I'll finish the rest of the
sure.
premise.
So the reason I don't formulate the argument in a syllogism is because syllogisms tend to be unconvincing, even when they're strong, especially when it comes to like non-academics. It just doesn't move the needle for people. So the reason I ask them to choose is because the words are coming out of their mouth. It's almost like I'm interviewing them and showing them that God exists in their direct experience. And so they've heard themselves say it, as opposed to hearing me say it to them, which is less convincing.
So, if I'm going to, so this is going to be a little meta then.
Sure.
If your goal is to convince someone or to change someone's position, and that's how you're approaching these dialectics, you're going to be having a very difficult time.
Well, actually, that's not my goal. Mm-hmm. That's just been the outcome. So it's like, as a matter of fact, I think in ushering in the Spirit of God, you want to let the interlocutor know, I have no intentions of attempting to convert you. If anyone has that job, it's the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. And I even say to them, I'm malleable. I'm willing to be taught that you're right instead of me, right? And so when I give them the demonstration, I'm just listening to them talk to me about their direct experience. And you tend to find them saying all of these things, which just demonstrate that it's God that they're talking about.
So you can still do that through an argument and through a syllogism. The reason why, especially in like debates like this, you're going to have individuals like Monkey Boy or Ogar debates. These two are the ones that come to the forefront of my mind, especially, who they'll ask you for an argument, and as soon as you start asking them a question, they're going to shut you down right then and there, because what they're asking.
Well, I've had a conversation with Monkey Boy before, and I was able to tell him I used the analogy of like lifting 50 pounds. I said, which one would convince you more that I was capable of lifting 50 pounds? Giving you an argument in favor of that ability, or lifting a 50-pound dumbbell in front of you? And he chose the latter. And I agreed with him. I was like, a demonstration actually works better than an argument. Okay. Because arguments, like, it's just in people's minds, they're just not convincing.
So when you were saying a demonstration, so you're using demonstration in more of the scientific sense and less of the mathematical, philosophical sense.
No, I'm using it in a phenomenological sense.
Right. That's the when I said scientific, that's what I was referring to, because the way that the scientific method demonstrates something is by empirical verification. So by showing the outcome. That's why when they it would still kind of be indirect though. Right. So it's like, if it appeals to the senses, you're experiencing something as mediated through the senses. So if I hear something, that sound is mediated through my ears. If I see something, what I'm seeing is mediated through my eyes. Yeah. What I'm saying is that the existence of God is immediate. It is prior to mediation, and that can be demonstrated phenomenologically with a few easy questions. Okay, so what you're claiming then is you're able to demonstrate something or demonstrate that God exists and that we have direct interaction or a direct experience to God versus the indirect experience of the senses.
That's right.
Okay, so all right, so I've picked an object, the computer mouse.
Okay, can you give me a couple of properties of the computer mouse?
Yeah, it's blue and black. It is about maybe 6 inches long. It's got a scroll wheel, and it has an LED light
Good.
powered by AA batteries.
Excellent. Perfect. So given that you've given me those properties, would it be safe to say you are aware of the mouse?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And being that you're capable of telling me that you are aware of the mouse, it should be safe to say you are aware that you are aware of the mouse. Is that fair also?
I'm tentative to say yes to that because that it's very easy for that to then get into an infinite regress.
Sure. Yeah. And just to let you know, if I say to someone, I am aware that I'm driving, right? I'm not driving right now, by the way. But if I say to someone, I'm aware that I'm driving, it means that I'm aware that I'm aware that I'm driving because I just said it, right?
But then you would
if I
also
can
be
say
aware
it, that means I'm aware of it.
that you're aware of your driving is what I was getting at.
Sure. And I think the further you go down that chain, the more difficult it is to metacognize the statement. But we end there, so I'm not taking you down that rabbit trail.
Well, that's what I'm
all I want to get the atheist to do is admit that they are self-aware, which is pretty easy in cognitive science.
I mean, at that point, all you're doing. So here's the easier way to arrive at that is just ask them if they accept the cogito. The cogito is I think, therefore I am. In order to know that one exists, one has to be aware of their own existence, so self-aware.
I think that's a great idea, and that's a great idea, and I used to do that. The only problem is I want it to remain within their experience and to not have it be propositional head knowledge. Because if I go to the cogito, they're going to be like, oh yeah, you're talking about Descartes. Now I'm going into mental objects, which are thoughts and memories. Nope. And I want them to stay phenomenological.
So with Descartes, like, it was phenomenological based. Because his whole thing was, I have experience, I have phenomenological experience, but I don't know if those experiences are real. It could all be an illusion. I'm still having this phenomenological experience. But it cannot be the case for me to for there to be a not me that has an experience. There has to be a thing with experience. And so he condensed that whole argument into the I think, therefore I am, but it's all phenomenologically based, is the way that the argument is actually parsed out in his meditations.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. So when you've talked to me about the mouse, and then you've talked to me about your awareness, and awareness of the mouse, and then awareness of awareness. At that point, I start questioning them about awareness. I say, okay, let's talk about this awareness that you're aware of. You said the mouse is blue and black. What color is awareness?
That's a category error. Awareness has no color. It's not a...
I agree.
Like, it's not a thing that... So that would be a category error to say that...
Sure, but it's still... If I said, does time have a color? I believe the correct answer would be no, right?
It's...
Because
well, so that's what I'm saying is it's like a...
Time is not the kind of thing that has a color.
Right, that's what makes it a category error. So you can... So what you asked, though, wasn't a yes or no question. It wasn't, does your awareness have a color? It was, what color is your awareness? So it's kind of like the difference between asking, are you gay? And have you told your parents that you're gay?
Yeah, and the thing is, whatever, this is the power of this demonstration. There's no wrong answer, really. So if you say that's a category error, I'm just going to say, well, that's interesting because it wasn't a category error. You know, if I were to ask what color is the mouse, that's not a category error. So what you're saying is you believe in the existence of an entity,
Hmm.
for which it is a category error to ask the color of it. So is this an invisible entity you believe in?
No, so awareness is not an entity in and of itself. Awareness is
Awareness is a being.
awareness is an action. Otherwise, what you would say if you were to talk about like the, okay, so you have the mouse and you're aware of the mouse, and you're aware that you're aware. Now you're doing if awareness is a being, I have now, like, the awareness has now been created as a being, but now there's an awareness of that being that is in and of itself a being, and now you have this infinite, because you acknowledge that this infinite regress exists, but you didn't want to walk down that path. But what ends up happening is that logical chain still exists even if it's not being talked about. And so now,
Right. I mean, I believe in potential infinities, just not actual ones. And so
and
I would agree if someone said
here's
you
the
could potentially continue,
well,
you could potentially continue with that chain. I would say sure, you could potentially continue. That
the
there's no logical problem there.
the problem is this isn't a potential infinity. This would be an actual infinity, because in order to so as you said, in order to have awareness of the mouse, you need to be aware that you're aware. But in order to be aware that you're aware, you have to be aware that you're aware that you're aware, and so on in
No,
infinity.
no, no. I disagree with that.
So where is the stopping point of it just a single repetition? What's because otherwise
Yeah.
it's an
So
arbitrary stopping point.
I believe that metacognition is a choice. For instance, strange question, but you're likely wearing socks or shoes right now. Is that
Nope.
fair? Okay, you're not wearing socks or shoes. A lot of times people are, but if you were wearing socks right now, you wouldn't have remembered that you were wearing socks. I would have just brought it to your attention, because one of the parts about a good pair of socks is that you forget that you're wearing them. So, bringing to your attention that you are wearing socks makes you metacognitive of that fact.
So
But it doesn't make you aware that you're aware that you're aware that you're aware that you're aware.
so
You actually have to do cognitive work to get to those levels.
well, so the thing is that the reason why I'm bringing that up is there is a theory on knowledge where it talks about I think it's called strong knowledge, where in order to know, you need to know that you know. But it then leads to that vicious regress of that. Then you need to know that you know that you know. Then you like where it goes on infinitely. But that isn't the
Well,
only standard or theory of knowledge. I don't think.
you're actually not. You're not phenomenologically capable of knowing that you know that you know that you know that you know that you
Which
know
is
that there's a
why,
mouse.
yeah, but that's why I don't think that's how knowledge works. I don't think we need to know that we know. Can we? Sure, but I don't think it's required for knowledge. So am I
No, no, no. I agree.
am I particular? So the bringing up, are you aware that you're aware? That then is muddying the waters and potentially leading into that infinite regress. So you don't even need to get into the awareness, like being aware that you're aware.
Here's the reason that step is important for the demonstration. I want the atheists to be able to objectify themselves in order to study themselves. So in order to know yourself, you have to see yourself as an object. Because if you're merely a subject, right, then it's like, okay, I'm aware.
You don't need to do
but in
that.
order to say I am self,
Yeah, you don't need to do the aware of the awareness in order to demonstrate or get them in a spot to be able to self-reflect. All that they need to do, like all self-reflection is awareness of the self. It's not awareness of awareness. It's awareness of the self. And you're able to do that without having to take that step that you're making. Just, hey, you exist, right? Yes. And you're able to reflect on your existence, correct? Yes. Boom. You've now
yeah,
made them an object.
I think that's totally fair. So you're saying get rid of the part where are you aware that you are aware?
Yep.
That whole portion is just going to lead their mind to the whole infinite regress thing, and then we're in the weeds.
Yep. And also all you need to do is ask them, you exist, right? Yes. And you're aware of your existence, right? So we at but at that point I'm struggling to even think of a single individual who would argue that they cannot talk about themselves as an object.
Right. No, that's good. So if that step is unnecessary, then I'm happy to trim that fat, because so then I ask, and let's get back to the category error thing, because I asked, you said that the
What
mouse
color?
has a color, it's
Yep.
black and blue,
And then you ask what
and
color
you're
is
not
my
only
awareness.
aware, well, what color is awareness is you said a category error,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine too. So awareness is the kind of being for which it is a category error to ask its color.
So this is why I'm disagreeing with you on that. Is effectively what you're doing is
I thought
saying,
that's what you said.
no, I disagree that awareness is being. Awareness is an action of a being. It's like asking what color is running. Okay, well, it's a category
Being
error to say that running has a color, therefore running is a kind of being that doesn't have color. Well, no, running is an
well by
action that
being
beings do.
well being in philosophy just means isness, and awareness is the only isness we know for certain.
Self. That's what the cogito is talking about. Cogito is not talking about awareness existing. The cogito is talking about the only thing we can know that exists is the self. Why? Because the self is having an experience and is aware of that experience. So,
But I disagree with the cogito. I take Hegel's critique of the cogito ergo sum. So I don't think that thinking is I mean proof. Thinking is evidence or even proof of being. I think, therefore I am. Sure, but I am stands alone.
right, but that's so.
Yeah.
What you're not getting at as far as like for the cogito is I don't need thinking in order for the self to exist, but I need thinking to know that the self exists.
Right.
So is
Yeah.
it true that the self exists
In order to conceptualize itself.
yeah, is it true that the self exists independently of thought? Yes, but in
See,
order to,
the reason I don't want to use self is because people get that trapped in like the egoic mind. Awareness has been working very well for me, because awareness is something that no one get that trapped in like the egoic mind. Awareness has been working very well for me, because awareness is something that no one.
hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So, sorry, like, first, I've been trying to figure out what's been going on with the internet connection. It's been getting better, I will say. But,
No worries.
so, with you appealing to continental philosophy, most atheist debaters that you're going to encounter are analytical. They don't hold to continental philosophy, and they also, and so what you're doing with the awareness is muddying the waters. Now, I don't think you're doing it intentionally or maliciously, but in my experience, you're better off figuring out what language is my interlocutor using and what do they mean by these terms, and how can I use their language to help them better understand my point. So when you're talking about awareness, what they're hearing is the act of thinking that the self has.
No, I actually like that, because it's an opportunity to expose modal confusion. So I actually use that to my advantage and to their advantage, because I actually like when modal confusion pops up. And by modal confusion, I mean the confusion between what I am and what I have. So a lot of atheists will confuse their awareness for an experience. Experiences are transient, they come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Experiences are things you have, but awareness is the subject that you are. And so it's a good thing having something come up, which gives me the opportunity to remind them of that.
Yeah. So that's fine, but again, you can still use the same thing using the language that they're familiar with. Like I was talking about before. So the way that Descartes works is I have an experience. There is an awareness of that experience. So there's three aspects that's going on. You have the not me, the experience. You have the awareness, that which the self is doing in relation to the not me. And then you have the self that's doing the thinking or the awareness. And so that distinction between the awareness and the experience does exist in the cogito. So what you're actually experiencing isn't that, and it's something that I experience with theists and atheists. It's just the common human nature of just not thinking your positions through logically. To use your sock example, they're aware of the cogito, but they're not aware of the implications and the distinctions that Descartes made until you bring it to their attention.
Sure. Can I ask you, what did you mean when you said awareness is an action? Like, can you define action?
Yeah, so an action is, so you have beings, and an action is that which a being does. So a tree grows, that's an action. A man thinks, that's an action. Whatever the verb is, that's the action. So when that's why, like, so that's why beings are things, and or nouns. So person, place, thing, and the verb as the action is whatever that being is doing.
Right. Now, I don't believe that awareness is something that human beings are doing. I believe that human beings are something awareness is doing. I'm an idealist.
So, okay. Idealism is not the type of God that I believe in, and you're going to have a hard time arguing to a non-idealist that, so what this is doing essentially is, it's not arguing necessarily for, the traditional understanding of God where we're his creation and we have our own separate entity, or we are our own separate
No,
entity from it. But
I believe that God is omnipresent. So
Well,
there
yeah.
is no separation. Yeah, there's nowhere that man could exist separately.
Well, no, that's not what I mean by we exist separately from God, because I also believe in omnipresence. But there is a distinction in the nature of God and our nature. We are not the actions of God, but we are the result of his action with a different nature than him.
I agree that we have a different nature than God. I just believe that the ground of man is the ground of God. I think Meister Eckhart said that first. So God is the reduction base in metaphysics.
Yeah.
God is the only being which exists mind independently.
Yeah. Aquinas said that too. Not in the same words, but that idea has been around since at least Philo of Alexandria. Maybe Moses Maimonides was one of the earlier ones, but that's been around for a very, very long time, of God as the ultimate foundation of reality from which all things ground their being. So like you said, God is the only mind-independent existence. But that's not the same as saying that awareness is doing us.
Awareness. What you mean when you say us is a plural term, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea that you believe that you are separate from me, in a way that you can say like we and us, mm-hmm. that's a result not only of the mind but of the fall, right? And I think Jesus came with an attempt to eradicate that self-deception.
Were Adam and Eve two different people?
Adam spoke of his wife and said, "This is flesh of my flesh." Mm-hmm. He identified with her as an extension of himself.
But did he also recognize her as a separate individual?
I think he saw her as superficially distinct and fundamentally the same.
So so do you know why Adam called her flesh of my flesh in relation to the story itself? It's because
uh,
not
Eve was take Eve was taken out of him, and he
right.
was breathed into by God. So
Hmm.
Adam was familiar with that
Yeah,
line of progression. He
but
recognized that
also,
Eve was not actually separate.
well, no, because he just went through naming all of the animals, identifying them by their species. And
Sure,
now, when
yeah,
he
and
sees,
yeah, he recognized the superficial distinction there as well.
so, but what I'm getting at, well, so, all right, if all that exists is oneness, then why were the animals not the same as flesh my flesh? Why are they not one with Adam?
I believe that Adam recognized that the anima, because the word anima means spirit.
Mm-hmm.
They were animated, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the Bible says that he recognized that there was no partner for him. So the reason that God
So he
held off on
so
creating Eve,
so he recognized that they were not one with him.
I don't know that he didn't recognize a oneness, but
Well, if they were one, and what was determined to be oneness is the partnership, because that's why he signals Eve out from the rest of all of creation, because she is his partner. Now there's a distinction between, even if I was to grant that Adam and Eve are one, there's still now a distinction between Adam and Eve and the rest of creation.
I agree. I agree. I just think
Which,
that the distinction is superficial.
no,
Just like if
if
I ask you
it's
to
yeah.
imagine a tree,
Hmm.
right? If you imagine a tree in your mind, you are abstracting the tree from everything the tree needs to be a tree, namely the roots, the soil, the water, the
But
sunlight, and so human beings learn as a result of ignorance. But God is omniscient. So I don't think Adam and Eve experienced that kind of ignorance prior to the fall. They saw themselves as an extension of the garden and as an extension of God. They walked with God through
so
the
they
garden,
had knowledge of good and
unashamed.
evil before they ate of the tree?
Absolutely. Eve actually tells the snake. The serpent says, "Did God say you could not eat of any of the tree in the garden?" She corrected him.
Well,
She
no, no,
said,
no, no,
"No,
no, no,
God
no.
said we could eat
That's
of any
that's
tree,
not
just not the one in the midst."
that's not what I'm asking. I didn't ask if they had knowledge of the tree. I asked if they had knowledge of good and evil.
Propositionally, yes, just
Okay.
not participatory knowledge.
Okay, so then there is something that they were lacking then, that they did not have knowledge of. That a
Uh,
core
Lacking.
Yeah, because if they didn't
What were
have,
they? What were they lacking?
you said they had the propositional knowledge, but they didn't have the knowledge that they gained after eating the tree.
No, no, no. A participatory knowledge of evil is a deficit, not an addition. So they didn't learn something which added to their knowledge. They learned something which took away from them, which denigrated them.
So you said, I didn't say that learn in the sense of adding, but that they didn't have this knowledge. They lacked this knowledge, even if it's still a lack. If I have a completely full container, it lacks emptiness. It lacks the lack. So when I was saying
A full container lacking empty, to lack emptiness is like, that's kind of like a double negative.
yeah, it lacks the lack. So that's why I was saying is like, even if I was to say they lacked that knowledge, and you were to say, well, no, like it took away from it, it's still a lack of a lack. But the point that I was getting at is your position is that everything is one. So
Right.
if you're as an idealist, one,
Mm-hmm.
that is going to be very hard to convince. Like even before you get into the idealism issue altogether, that's going to be very hard to convince a non-idealist. Because like for myself, I believe in God, but I don't hold to idealism. But the God that you're trying to argue for is idealism. And so the problem that you're going to encounter is less about trying to demonstrate the existence of God, but that idealism is true. And that is honestly a much harder...
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be super. I mean, like atheists, for instance, are all. I mean, they consider themselves astute, autodidacts with respect to cognitive science and neuroscience. The greatest neuroscientist in world history is Carl Friston. He's a transcendental idealist, like Immanuel Kant. So, I mean, I don't know if I'll have a ton of trouble there. The atheists are more scared of the word God than idealism. As a matter of fact, Alex O'Connor is like 45% convinced that God exists now because of idealists like Philip Goff and Bernardo Castro.
So the thing is that what I'm getting at is that's the real point of contention. Isn't about if God exists or not, but if idealism is true. So your argument.
I don't understand how a Christian. Can you explain to me how a Christian could be not a Christian, but like, what do you mean? Like, what do you think is fundamental, if not a mind, as a theist?
Existence itself. Because even
existence is not a.
So if you look in the book of Exodus, how does God define his name? How does he define his identity?
As amness, I am.
Existence. Not awareness, existence. I am is the verb of to be, being. He is existence. He is being.
Right, but I think the thing you're forgetting is the word I means he is a self-referential subject. So, to say of yourself I means that I am referring to myself as an awareness.
So hold on. The I is in reference to the amness, yes. So I understand that you're getting at like, well, God has a mind, but allow me to finish. So the understanding within classical theism that Thomas Aquinas was following and that the Catholic Church continues to hold is that God is pure act, pure existence. We also hold to the dogma of divine simplicity. So if God is pure act, pure existence, then every attribute that we put on God is an analogy. And there are some analogies that are proper, like his omnibenevolence, and there are some analogies that are improper, like God spread his wings to bring Israel back to him. That's an improper analogy because it's not describing a quote-unquote proper attribute of God. It's a true analogy, so to speak. But what the divine... So the aspects of like the mind, act, justice, will, all of these different quote-unquote attributes of God are actually our experience of his singular act, and we're experiencing them as different effects, but in reality they are one and the same in God.
I respect that, and I agree with it. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even attribute to God a mind. I think that awareness is pre-mental. So the mind, I think, is I think of as synonymous with cognition.
So, well, the thing is that, like awareness, so the way that Thomas Aquinas describes it is you cannot say anything positive about the nature of God. You can, other than the fact that he exists. Everything else is either an analogy, otherwise you're in danger of doing a false equivocation, or a negation. So like when we say God is infinite, we're not adding anything onto God, we are actually removing finite aspects. When we say
love that you're... I'm sorry, I thought you were done. I love that you are bringing this up because I agree. I think even Meister Eckhart said the same thing. That the only... Because God is no thing, right? So God is not a mental object, a physical object, or a sensory object. So I think when you remove everything, right, the Bible says, be still and know that I am God. So when man is finally still, when we finally shut off all of our senses and all of our things, then God is the only remaining being. And that being is aware.
So that being is aware. But that being is not awareness. That's my point.
Oh, I would say that being is awareness, but the being is not aware of.
So here,
right?
what I would recommend then, if you really want to get into this to understand, especially how classical theists are approaching this question. So awareness is a thing, correct?
Awareness is being. I wouldn't say awareness is a thing. Things are physical objects, mental objects, and sensory objects.
Okay, so awareness is being, right?
Right.
And that being has existence, correct? Or that being
that being is, yeah.
Yeah, that being exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
we now have awareness and is. All right. So let me ask you this. Is God indivisible? Is he ultimately fundamental?
Yes.
Okay. So in order for him to be ultimately fundamental, that means that nothing is prior to him. But what that leads to is you have awareness and isness. So either, in order for it to be truly fundamental, they actually collapse into one and the same thing, which is what Thomas Aquinas is talking about for divine simplicity, where it's just the isness, because you can talk about awareness without talking about its isness, so therefore it's a distinction. But in order for the awareness to have isness, the isness has to be ontologically prior, and the awareness is dependent on the isness. That's why God is only the isness.
I don't understand why I don't understand why you would say that isness is prior to the being that awareness is. Like, if there is awareness, then awareness and isness are simultaneous.
Well, but that's the problem. Is if God is ontologically prior to everything, he is also simple, which means he's not composed of
Right,
parts.
but isness isn't a thing. Isness is not a mental object, a sensory object, or a physical object.
Same for awareness, but they are two separate categories.
That's right.
So either they are two separate categories, which are divisible, which means not simple, or they're one and the same thing, which
I believe that they're fundamentally one and the same, because I'm an idealist. I believe that everything is emergent from no thing.
Right. But here's the thing for that then. If they're one and the same thing, all right? Like, you can say that awareness is and one, or awareness and isness are one and the same thing, but the awareness still is. So what is more fundamentally prior, or what is more fundamentally important when we're talking about the existence? The isness or the awareness? It's the isness.
They're simultaneous.
Well, no, but that's what I'm... If they're simultaneous, and they're one and the same, then what we need to identify is what is the quote-unquote illusion. So, for example, you're saying that awareness is the fundamental, foundational, and that's all it is that it's oneness, or that it's awareness. And from our experience of this
awareness cannot be an illusion.
Right.
Because it's the prerequisite for illusion.
And from our experience of awareness, we're experiencing something that we might call a will. It doesn't actually have a will in the sense that you and I have a will. We might also say that it has a mind, because from our experience, it looks like it's got a mind, or from its effects, it looks like it has a mind. But it doesn't actually have a mind, especially in the way that you and I have it, right? So what we need to determine is if, as you're saying, awareness and isness are the same, we need to determine which is the illusion. Is it the awareness, or is it the isness? And if you say it's the
neither, because they're one and the same.
But that's what I'm saying. If they're one and the same, yet we're using two different terms to describe the one and the same thing, then one is accurate and one is inaccurate. One is literally true and one isn't literally true, otherwise you're equivocating and being idiosyncratic with your terminology.
Yeah, I guess I'm not understanding your meaning here. I'm kind of lost. So in order for a being to exist, it already is. So anything that we're calling a being, or that we're saying is either a mind independent or mind dependent object or being, already is. So to say that a being is redundant.
But
So saying that awareness is redundant.
Well, so here's the problem with that. Is we're trying to figure out, like you said, if awareness is, it's redundant. A unicorn is. But is it?
That's right. That's right. So, a unicorn is a unicorn is a unicorn is a mental object.
But
it is. But mind independently, it is not.
So nothing is here. Does nothing have isness?
No, things are here. Nothing, no thing is fundamental.
I'm talking about Heidegger's metaphysical nothingness. Is that here? When I say nothing is here,
I'm not sure about Heidegger's metaphysical nothingness.
So the point that I'm getting at is, again, to pull from Kant, we want to be careful of logical illusions. And that's why he had the problem with ontological arguments, is because it's very easy to fall into this logical illusion where it looks like logic is leading us one way, but then it leads to something problematic.
Sure.
So the point that I'm getting at is, you're saying, well, awareness is, and because, we can only speak of things with is, it has being, therefore it exists. I'm saying you want to be careful doing that, because that is playing language games, essentially. And if I was to say that that bachelor is married, well, I have just talked about something that cannot exist, not even as a concept. That circle has four sides. Same thing. I have just now talked about something that cannot exist. So I think I'm giving something being, but I'm really not. So that's why I'm asking, and what you've got to do if you really want to do this is, one, make sure you're not pulling an ontological argument, which is what this is kind of doing, because you're saying that isness is foundational, and because awareness is, therefore awareness exists, and awareness is ultimate.
See, but listen, hear me out. When I say that awareness is fundamental, I've used the word is. When I say awareness is fundamental, right? So to follow that up with is else. Wait, hang on. To say that to ask the question, the follow-up question, is isness also fundamental? It seems to have misunderstood or misheard the original statement. If I say awareness is fundamental, it already demonstrates that awareness and isness are being treated as simultaneous. When I say the car is in the parking lot, it doesn't make sense to ask, well, is isness also in the parking lot? Well, no, the car is.
No, so you're
right. The isness goes with the car.
You're misunderstanding my point. You said awareness is fundamental. Okay, that's right. The car is fundamental.
No, the car is in the driveway, is what I said.
No. I'm saying the car is fundamental.
Okay.
So how do we determine which one of us is true? I said the car is fundamental.
Okay. If you want to say that the car is fundamental, then you're going to say that emergent from cars are cars and trucks and the things that we see, right? Because a car is a physical object. So essentially you're saying that what is fundamental are very large classical objects which are physical. and it kind of makes no sense. It's not something anyone would take seriously.
And how do you know you're not making a similar mistake with awareness?
Because awareness is the only candidate which is capable of bringing into reality space and time.
Do me a huge favor. So let me ask you this. Can something exist without existence?
No.
Okay. So everything in order to exist requires existence, correct?
Yeah, I think that's like A is A.
So
existence is existence.
Yeah. So, And awareness exists, correct?
Right.
Is awareness the same as existence?
Is awareness the same as existence?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I would say fundamentally yes.
Okay.
So yeah.
So fundamentally,
in idealism, awareness is synonymous with existence.
Okay. So there's two. So this is why I'm saying you're equivocating, because almost nobody uses awareness that way. Because can something exist without being aware that it exists?
Aware that is a new conversation. That's an experience.
So, but can and so if something can exist without awareness,
nothing can exist without awareness.
That is your burden of proof then, that you're going to have to demonstrate, because
I think I could. To give I think one of the demonstrations I gave already was the tree. When I said, can you imagine a tree? The answer is kind of simultaneously yes and no. So, if you abstract that tree from everything to which the tree is connected, then you're doing a cognitive filtering process. But you haven't really seen the tree. What you've seen is your goal with respect to the object in your mind.
What I'm talking
but the
about,
tree is connected to so many things.
What I'm talking about, though, is does planet XV75 that orbits star Cephalion, does that exist even though no one's aware of it currently?
It would exist as a mental object in your mind.
No,
almost like Harry Potter. You just made it up.
No, I'm talking about the physical planet that has yet to be discovered. Did it exist before anyone was aware of it?
No.
So until people discovered the North Pole did not exist?
Correct. Not as such. Not as the North Pole. No.
See,
I believe that there were energy. I believe that there were like gradients of energy. I believe that there. But just
no,
like if there's
an
wait, hang on. Wait, hang on. If there's an apple on your desk and you go out of the room and turn the lights off, do you believe that there's still an apple on your desk? That the room respects your. I mean, that would just be naive realism, then, wouldn't it?
No.
I mean, science has proven that false for a long time.
Are you talking
color
about,
is a transjective
Are you talking
color is a transjective relationship between an object in your eyes.
You didn't ask me
the
if
physical texture of the apple doesn't exist.
So you didn't ask me about
what's left of the apple besides the properties.
As Kant would put it, the thing in and of itself, which we never experienced.
The noumena?
Yeah.
No, but are you saying that the phenomena that we call apple matches the noumena, which we can't observe at all? How do you make an argument in favor of that?
No, what I'm saying is that when I am talking about the phenomena that I call apple, I am simultaneously, even though I'm talking about the experience and the phenomena, I am also pointing to the noumena, that thing in and of itself. Even if I've never experienced it, I am. But
according to Kant, we never experienced the noumena.
I never said I needed to. I even said we never experienced the noumena. But there's still a noumena whose phenomena I'm experiencing. And I am saying that the noumena...
Now, I agree with that.
I am saying...
I agree with that. I'm not a solipsist, so I agree with you.
So, when I say the apple still exists, I'm not talking about the phenomenon. I am talking about the noumena whose phenomenon I'm experiencing, and that noumena still exists.
Right, but it's strange to call that noumena an apple, given that if we, I mean, the thing is, because all we have to do is like, I think any quantum physicist would say, like, in the quantum realm, you wouldn't recognize an apple at all. And we all appreciate and agree with that. And yet you're suggesting that in the noumenal realm, there is the thing that you call apple classically? Like, why does that make sense?
No, that's not what I said at all.
But you said the apple still exists.
I said,
and I'm wondering what that means.
I said the noumenon that I am referring to, the noumena that is producing the phenomenon that I am referring to as apple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let me put it to you like this.
But that avoids the question then, because what I asked is the apple still there?
And by
not does the noumena which existed prior to
So,
the phenomena.
but that's the point that I'm getting at, is you are
Yeah.
talking in a language that most of your interlocutors don't speak. Almost no atheist that you're going to encounter, like, they might be familiar with Kant, but they don't speak Kant's language. They don't agree with Kant's language.
I think very few, including myself, speak Kant's language. I mean, people have like a general, non-exhaustive overview.
Well, no, you just were doing it at a much deeper level than I have, and I guarantee you I am far more familiar with Kant than most atheists you're going to talk to.
Gotcha.
So if your use of terminology was enough to confuse the conversation with me, I shudder.
Then it's going to be confusing for them.
Yes.
Gotcha.
That's why I was like, my best advice to anyone who wants to get into apologetics, find out the language that they're using, find out the terminology that they're using, how they talk and how they think, and try to convey your ideas using their language. Because otherwise what they're going to feel is you are being unclear, you are falsely equivocating, and you are being tricky and intellectually dishonest in order to score a point.
To be honest, this is the reason the demonstration has worked so incredibly well, is because atheists hate, they pretend to love like theistic arguments and syllogisms, but they actually hate them and they can't wait to hand wave it. So the thing that works brilliantly about this demonstration is that the atheist is the one doing the talking. I'm just asking the questions and writing down their answers. Right. And so I've had atheists admit to me, yes, I believe in awareness. Yes, I believe in awareness more than any experience, because awareness is the prerequisite for experience. Yes, I believe that awareness can't be doubted. I believe that awareness is an invisible being, meaning it has no color. I believe that awareness has no shape. Awareness is immediate instead of mediated by time. So you can go down, once you get them to admit that awareness is, and you go down the properties or the lack thereof, then it becomes a beautiful thing, listening to what they say.
But here's the problem, is that they think they're saying one thing because they're talking about awareness as a verb. You're talking about it as a noun, and then at the end you're saying, see, you agree with me, when they haven't been speaking the same language as you this whole time.
See, but the thing is, I think that is what introduces the whole modal confusion thing, because you're right. A lot of times when I'm speaking about being, they're speaking about having. So they're talking about experiences they have, and I'm talking about the awareness that they are.
So if that works for you, great. I personally do not like engaging in something where my intent can be misunderstood or is unclear. And that's what I feel like is happening with your approach, where you are using a term that means one thing in their metaphysical language that they are familiar with, and you're using it in a different way than they are. And then you're surprising them. Oh, see, you agree with me because being means ba 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 ba, when they've been using that term in a completely different sense.
See, but there's the beautiful thing is there's no surprise. Like when I say, do you believe that awareness has a color? Right? They'll either say what you did, which is category error, or they'll say, no, awareness isn't the type of thing that has a color, which is also a fair answer. And I say, but you do believe that awareness is a being, and by being I just mean isness. They say, I wouldn't say being. And so I would say, okay, well, I mean entity or existent or whatever. Right? So sometimes we go back and forth, but essentially they'll say, yeah, awareness is an invisible thing I believe in. And this is an aware thing and it's invisible. But I don't jump out and say, look, you've admitted all the omni properties. You know, I've got you trapped. No, we're walking step by step with one another through all of these ideas. So we'll start with the invisibility, and then we'll slowly walk through all of the other omni properties.
So the thing is that, again, what you're doing there, and if you happen to have a recording of, your appearance where you got someone to be like, yeah, no, I agree with you, I'd love to see it. But in my experience, I've seen people who have tried this approach that you're doing, and it blows up in their face every single time.
I've never actually seen this done besides Rupert Spira on the Kurt Jaimungal podcast.
So you've never
Kurt
done
Jaimungal's a mathematical physicist.
So I thought you said this was something you've done.
No, me. Yeah. So what I said, I haven't seen other people do this. This is not because most Christians don't believe that.
You said you've done this before.
Correct, me. So what I'm saying is, I haven't seen other Christians.
Is I want to see, like, if you have a recording of you doing this, because, like, for example, you said you talked to Monkey Boy, and Monkey Boy records all of his lives, to my knowledge.
It was Monkey Boy, Dr. Blitz, and some guy named Jay.
Yeah. If you can find those recordings and send them over to me, I'd love to see it.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, it's been fun, and I think it's better just because you're not preaching at people. You're just asking them about their direct experience and showing them that their direct experience is the same as your own.
Well, like I said, I'd love to see it. If that method works, then great. I'll take that into consideration. But in my experience, from what I've seen, they usually don't appreciate that approach.
The jump scare.
Yeah. So.
Gotcha.
So, like I said, if you can show me them being appreciative and actually enjoying it, then great. I'll take that into consideration and tell people how to do that approach properly. But I've never seen it actually work, even when done well.
Yeah, I think the best example is Rupert Spira on the Kurt Jaimungal podcast, because he's not a Christian, he's a mathematical physicist, and Spira takes him through the direct path that I just showed you. And he does an incredible job. So.
Yeah. Well, you said you found success with it as well, so I'd like to see your experience with it.
Oh, I mean, if you wanted to bring an atheist up,
well, no,
I could show you right now.
No, that's well, because I've got a couple of other people in the guest request box.
Oh, gotcha,
Two,
yeah.
That's not what the purpose of this is. That's why I said get those recordings.
Fair enough.
And send them over to me, and I'll check them out.
Hey, thanks for the conversation, man. I appreciate your advice. Take care.
You too. All right. Well, that definitely went a little bit longer than I expected. I tried to make sure I get to everyone, but that was the first time I've had, such an in-depth conversation in a while. But real quick, thanks, Sir Piffington and Poopman Jones for the support. Thank you, everyone, for the follows and the shares. But yeah, we'll go ahead. I think Sports World was the next one. If they connect. There we go.
Hey, I'm on. Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can. How old are you real quick?
I'm way over 18. You're in good shape, brother.
All
I promise you.
So what brings you up?
Well, I'm a Protestant. I'm a Christian. And ironically, I thought you would find this informative and interesting. There was an atheist that did a podcast, and I was talking through some contingency arguments with him. And he said, hey, man, you need to follow and go listen to Catholic Thinker. I think you'll enjoy this conversation. So, hey, man, it's not often that you get an endorsement. So I was really kind of proud of the guy. I said, hey, man, I'm going to go follow him. And then you just happened to be live. And so I thought, hey, man, I'd love to talk to the guy. So it's interesting.
Yeah,
isn't that cool?
Appreciate it. Yeah. Out of curiosity, who was the person you were speaking with?
I cannot remember his name. He doesn't have a big following or anything. And if I can remember it, I'll try to DM you later on. And I'll see him go through again.
Yeah, there's a few that I tend to frequent. Was it like Evidence First?
No, I don't think it was that. Give me another one. Yeah. But he was a young guy, pretty young guy. Yeah, pretty young guy. So interesting though. So yeah, man. So wow, impressed with your philosophical knowledge. How are you? Are you pretty knowledgeable in Thomistic cosmology?
Yeah, it's like if you get into like very, 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 very specific stuff, I'll need to probably look up to do a refresher. But I'm pretty familiar with it, even just off the top of my head.
Wonderful. So I'm doing some writing. I'm doing some academic writing on cosmology, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually doing some religious disputation, comparing a Muslim scholar and a Christian scholar, which is obviously Thomas Aquinas.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually found Al-Hazali's work rather compelling on the personhood of this beginning,
Mm-hmm.
this beginning event. How do we get an effect with a beginning from a cause that is permanent,
Yeah.
right? How do we go from inaction to action, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, kind of give me a brief overview. Does Aquinas actually teach that the universe is eternal?
So there's two aspects to understand with eternality. The first is eternality does not necessitate infinite. So Aquinas does say that God is
Unpack that for me if you wouldn't mind. One more
yeah,
time. Say it again.
yeah,
Eternality does not.
imply infinity.
Okay, help me
Yeah.
understand that metaphysically.
Yeah. So infinity just refers to, quantity or amount. Whereas eternity is, I think, better understood as, there's two ways to understand it accurately, and it's either for all time and unchanging. So in the perspective of the universe, even if the universe had a, are you familiar with B theory or block theory of time?
I am. I
Okay.
am.
Okay. So, um, in block theory, the universe is eternal, but it could have a finite number of time slices. It could have a first moment and a last moment. There are many cosmological scales or models that permit that. And you would still say it's eternal because there is no moment before the first moment. So if there's no moment before the first moment, then there's no space, there's no time, there's no before. There's not nothing either, because nothing isn't a thing that exists. So you can have this eternality. And so what Thomas Aquinas points out is, or what he believed, is it is impossible to demonstrate or show through natural reason if the universe had a finite beginning or not. It is an article of faith that we accept from God. So the idea that the
What if I reject that? Because I think most Christians mess up here. It's not logically impossible for this actual infinite regress, right? But I would say that it's metaphysically impossible. It can't be instantiated in the world of the real. And I would employ, if you'd allow me to,
Mhm.
the arguments that were actually used against him whenever Thomas came out with this. Right, there was this entire 75-point thing that was written against him by it wasn't the Dominicans, because the Dominicans defended him, but their point was is that wait a minute, and they did it through reductio, right? As Leibniz did with a book. If I have a book, how did I get a copy of that book? I copied it from one previous, copied one from
Mhm.
previous, and through reductio, I can demonstrate that there's not this actual infinite
Mhm.
regresses of causes and
Yeah.
effects. But you're
So
saying what Thomas was implying is something different than that, right?
yeah. So what I'm saying is that, so so you have a number line, right? What number is before 1? Well, 0. And what number is before 0? -1. So it goes, and you always have a number before, and you always have a number after. And if B theory is true, because the whole point or argument against an infinite time is, it's thinking of the entirety of the universe at, like, I'm just going to take, let's say, the particular atom that is the sun, or that will be the sun, or that particular point in space that the sun will occupy. Let's call that point A, right? And point A exists, and it exists for infinity, but if it exists for infinity, then it can't get to this point. That's a particular view of time called presentism. But that's not necessarily the case for B theory. If all of time is actualized, then what that means is time is just a different dimension in the same way that space is a dimension. So if I am standing right here, 10 miles from me still exists, and I can walk that. Now, let's say, for the sake of this experiment, there is an infinite road, right? Well, the argument is, well, how can I get to this point if the road is infinite? The position of Aristotle, and this is why Thomas Aquinas said that you can't demonstrate that the infinite road doesn't exist, but it's an article of faith, is because it's not that you have traveled the entirety of the road, and nothing in space has traveled the entirety of this road. Nothing has traveled the entirety of the road. Because the road isn't doing traveling. The road is that which we are traveling through. So you entered the road at mile marker 17, and you travel from mile marker 17 to mile marker 28, and someone else pops in at mile marker 26, and they will travel to mile marker 48. So the only time that the infinite time is a problem is if you're positing that something had to travel every single point. But if time is infinite, and it's a part of the fabric of space-time, then space isn't traveling through time. In the same way that, like, say, you and I are experiencing the perception of the passing of time. Have you looked into the illusion of, or the paradox of simultaneity?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
A great. Have you listened to the debate between William Lane Craig and on gosh, what was it on? Justin Peters, maybe. He did it with a female professor, and so he advocates for. So you're not a B theorist, are you? Do you believe in the B theory of time, or you
Yeah.
embrace it? Do you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thomas Aquinas, honestly, like, if you read his cosmology and the way that he describes the way that God interacts with time, in fact, the omnipresent aspect of it,
Yeah.
especially,
Yeah.
he's arguing for a pseudo B theory.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to look at that again. I'm looking through a lot of his work right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think William Lane Craig makes a compelling case for, though, like, time can be experienced as in different, based upon the speed we're going, that there nevertheless is this hyperplane of simultaneity that exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
That cuts across all of them. That there still is this hyperplane of becoming, of now, right? And I find that actually pretty compelling. I think I'm going to need another run at it because I still struggle. What do you do? So last one, then I'll hang up. And thanks for the information. This is really good. I can't imagine where anybody else could have this conversation. Right? So what does this mean for ex nihilo? What does this mean for God created everything out of nothing? Yep.
So the thing to understand, what a lot of people mistake, because they think of nothing as a thing.
Nothing is what Aristotle said. What rocks dream of. It's universe. It's a term of universal negation, right? Yeah.
No, not even that, because that is in and of itself still a thing. The negation of a thing is still a thing. So
okay.
Yeah, like,
okay.
Nothing is so metaphysically weird. Like,
you can't wrap your head around it. That's right. Yeah.
So.
Because we imagine a blank space.
But it's not even that.
Blank space, that's exactly right. Yeah, so, you're right. Yep.
So, when we say that God created from nothing, we are not saying that he took this nothingness and transformed it into something. What happened is there was nothing, and then God said, "Let there be man." And boom, man was there. He didn't turn nothing into man. Man just came to be. Thomas Aquinas describes this act of creation as emanation, but you want to be careful with it because
necessary. Avicenna. We get necessary emanation. Yep. Go ahead. Yep.
That's what I was going to say. Is like he distinguishes it from necessary emanation, like you were talking about.
That's right.
But he does still describe it because, and I do agree with him, the language that it's conveying is appropriate, I believe, for the type of creation that God is doing, but it is not necessary. God could have chosen to emanate or not emanate.
That's interesting. All right. Hey, man, what part of the world are you located in, if you're able to tell me? What state are you in?
Central Standard Time.
Okay, good. Same. Okay, buddy. Hey, man, what a pleasure to talk to you. Like I said, I'm sure we'll jump on again. I'm going to be, I'm doing some writing here on this project, and so I'm certain I'll reach out to you again.
I do have a YouTube channel. In fact, this is probably a good time to plug it. I've got a YouTube channel and a Discord. If you want to DM me, I do have a link tree, but it's because of the way my TikTok account is currently, you basically have to copy paste it. But if you send me a DM, I can get you my Discord and my YouTube channel. I even have a video talking about the infinite regress as Thomas Aquinas understood it.
Hey, follow YouTube. I have a podcast. I'm in ministry and I travel and speak. But we have a podcast called Sunday Huddle.
Okay.
I need to have you on sometime. I'm based out of Texas.
Nice.
But I'm going to be doing some work in Europe. I'm actually going to be studying at Oxford with your Blackfriars guys.
Nice.
So I'm going to be doing my writing starting in the fall. But anyway, we had Gregory Pine on as our guest twice.
Yeah.
And Gregory, Father Pine's a good friend. And so I'd love to have you on sometime and we could talk about this. I'd really enjoy this kind of conversation.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it.
Hey, what a great conversation. Thanks for your knowledge, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. You have a good one.
You too.
All right. But yeah, no, that was awesome. We've got Anarchist Mom, who I've spoken with before. Sup?
Yo, what's going on, dude? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Dude, doing good. I wanted to come in here because you started talking about Kant.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the conversation. I forget I have like an attention span of a fucking goldfish. So, yeah. But I wanted to kind of ask you, when I understand Kant, he seems to be talking not of, like, you described awareness kind of like as a property. Like, can you point to it? Can you see it as a color? It seems to me that awareness is more, in like an Aristotelian sense, a relationship. Like,
that was the position that I was trying to get, and then when I realized that the guest held more to like the Kantian view type of thing, I was trying to point to it as an action, because Kant is still aware of actions and still talks about actions, but I don't know, like, but yeah, so like I think of awareness, like actions are all actions are relational things, but not all relational things are actions, if that makes sense.
I'll elaborate on that for me.
Yeah, so
use examples. I like my pop-up books.
So okay, so for example, if I say I love, well, love is an action, right? And I can love, but love is an action in relation to something else. And then there's also the relation of I exist because of my parents. There's that efficient causal relationship, but that's not an action per se. There's also I exist as a physical thing because I am composed of matter. That is a formal causal relationship, but it's not an action, but it is a kind of relational thing. So it seems to me like even running is about it's an act that is the relation between me and space, because it is a type of motion. I am moving through space, and motion is the relationship of myself to other objects. Almost every action, in my perspective, can be rephrased to describe a particular type of relationship between us as the subject and an object.
Yeah, well, that's specifically like what exactly went through my mind. Like, legitimately, I'm so glad you pointed that out, because I was going to come up here and start screaming about like universalia and rebus and immanent realism. So thank God you pointed that out. I know this isn't a apologetic workshop, but
Well,
you
it's
seem to
also
agree with everything that I was going to say.
yeah. I was like, it's also for people who just have general questions about Christianity or and Catholicism. It's just too long for this up there. But I figure apologetic workshop and my name Catholic Thinker is enough to get people to come up and talk even more than just apologetics.
Yeah, actually, before I go,
Mm-hmm.
I just ordered a copy of the Summa Theologica, if that's how
Mm-hmm.
you pronounce it. And I'm really interested in Thomas Aquinas's causation argument. I think it's this first way, if I'm not mistaken, the argument from motion.
Mm-hmm. I think the first way is the argument for motion. Oh, funnily enough, I actually, yeah, first and more manifest way is the argument for motion, which is, and then the second way is the nature of the efficient cause, which is how we understand causation in the modern sense. Um, so first way is motion, which is change. Second way is cause. The third way is possibility and necessity. So basically a modal argument. The fourth way is gradation to be found in things. So the argument from perfection. And the fifth way is the telos argument.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a huge fan of the argument for perfection. I have heard that a lot. But like you brought it up actually before, and I'm curious if you've been listening to me debating people for a while, but I argue for presentism. I think B theory is played out a lot. Not saying that it's not, factual. I just at this point, like what more can an atheist say about it? But I was in a live and he kind of motivated, like, yeah, well, you could argue that the universe is past eternal, but I could just, motivate. Sorry, my pasta's boiling over.
You're good.
I could just motivate the argument from motion against that. And I thought that was really smart. Um, but I'm not really understanding most of it. Do you have time to like explain it in detail, or do you want to get on to a next guest?
Right now you're the only one, but so the question is about like the argument from motion.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Because like it's the case that even if you were to argue that the universe is past eternal, you still need an actualizer to set into motion.
So that was the point that I was trying to make with the previous guess about how Thomas Aquinas holds that you can't prove one way or the other if the universe is past, has an infinite past or not. So he formatted all of his arguments to work independently of there being a beginning or not.
Okay. Have you listened? Side note: have you listened to Jesus and whatnot and his take on it?
I have not.
So there's this really good apologist. He debated Dean Withers a couple times, but he has this video on YouTube called "How Do You Get to Jesus Christ from a Guitar Pick" or something, and he kind of like modified it. I think you'd be really interested if you check it out. It's a really good argument.
Okay. You said Jesus and whatnot?
Yeah. He's getting kind of big in the debate space, I think.
I haven't heard his stuff, but I think I saw him pop up in my chat at one point. Because I recognize the name, but I just haven't checked any of his stuff out.
I know if you'll wait here, I could kind of get like the summary of his argument if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah.
Give me one moment.
I've got at least 30 more minutes before I gotta get dinner. But and Anarchist, just to let you know. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. I think it's like 8 premises, but it kind of I was jotting down the notes when this guy was running it. So it's like all things have parts, and all things with parts have potency, right? Like all things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have my coffee maker in front of me. The fact that it has parts means that it could have been a different way, because those parts could have been arranged in any different sort of combination to do so. P2, all things with potency require outside explanation.
Okay, so P1 is all things have parts, and to have parts entails potency. Okay, so that's P1.
And then we have...
So hang on, repeat P2 again.
Oh yeah, all things with potency require outside explanation.
Things with potency require outside explanation. Okay.
And then we have all things that require explanation are contingent. Premise 4, an infinite chain of contingent things cannot explain why it exists, I believe it was. I'm going to be wording this wrong at this point because I started listing this.
An infinite chain. I'm just going to substitute infinite regress.
Yeah.
Well, to be funny for the chat, I'll say infinite regress magic happens here. Alright.
And so I have for 5, requires a necessary being to actualize. You might be able to fill in the blanks with that one.
Okay. This chain must terminate in... what was the rest of it? So, that you had said, a necessary or...
Yeah, necessary being to actualize.
To actualize this chain. Okay.
And then it just kind of follows the rest of the typical Thomistic argument. You know, like what is pure actualization? So that's premise 6 is the necessary being is pure actualization.
P6.
Being that necessary being has no parts.
Yeah.
Is premise 7, I believe.
Actualization. I would, if it was me, I would do more premises between P5 and P6, but that's just me.
You know, if there probably is, and I totally hear you. I was writing this down because this kid was like on Adderall or something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, so but yeah, this is like almost all contingency argument. Like, I think the contingency argument is the best way to try to go about it, or some version of it, as well. Or let me rephrase it. I think the contingency argument is good at showing that the kind of being that we normally describe as a god must exist. Then we need a separate argument to demonstrate whether the universe can be the necessary thing that is pure actualization or not. I like the way he's going about it to kind of help eliminate the universe as that, but I'm currently doing research on priority monism, where it would almost completely disagree with P1, or maybe even with P2, because
that's actually exactly where I had to go with it. Like, instead of like the universe, I had to argue was kind of like a misnomer if it's made up of parts. The reality is like a mereological sum of relations, which is its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of confused concept to try and work around, but I just found it really good. It actually stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah, like, this is good because, like, it's doing exactly what Thomas Aquinas is trying to do. It's like, hey, let's not even bother asking whether or not the universe is infinite in of itself with an infinite per se causal relations. But let's figure out if an infinite chain can be self-explanatory. And here, it can't be. Which is like very similar to the situation as I was talking about with my very first guest. I don't know if you were here for that, about because we got into awareness and then being aware that you're aware, and I was like, well, then that means that you have to be aware that you're aware that you're aware, which then becomes an infinite regress.
Yeah.
Which, and So, um, but that would be the way out for, I think, a lot of people. And I don't know if you've seen I think you and I spoke when I had finished the argument that I've got on my account. But I do need to rework on it because it runs into the same issue as that one about it's relying on a particular metaphysical worldview that excludes priority monism. And I want to make an argument that we're basically doing to I forgot what the term that you had used was about the murological.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's independent of whichever of those systems is true. Just like Thomas Aquinas did it for where his arguments work independent of whether the universe has an infinite past or not.
Yeah, see that the thing is, do you actually have an issue with an infinite past? I know you touched on that before, but I was talking to my girlfriend, so I kind of missed that.
I accept it. I'm the same way as Thomas Aquinas. I don't have an issue with it as a theoretical or even scientific possibility. I don't accept it as a matter of faith.
Okay. So you don't really have like an issue in and of itself. You just are like it doesn't seem to
Like, because of the way that I've reasoned my way to God, because of the way that I reasoned to one of the Abrahamic faiths being true, and continuing on to Catholicism being true, there's enough credence there in the authority of the church for me to accept that God has revealed through the scriptures and the tradition and the deposit of faith through the church that the universe had a temporal first moment, which we can call a beginning, as opposed to an infinite one.
Yeah, I see. Are you familiar with different cosmological models like the LQC or CCC?
I am not. Basically, my extent of the different cosmological models is finite past, infinite past. That's about the extent of it.
Okay. Yeah, because a lot of these ones actually posit that, yes, there was a beginning to, like, this universe. Obviously, it's all, like, you can't really have, like, concrete evidence like we normally do within this reality, but we can kind of infer our way to this being the case, being that we can't really measure with our instruments past that. But listen, dude, I'm really fucking dinner up right now, so I gotta go. I'll stop by another time, and I hope I can talk more about optimistic arguments with you.
I am trying to do these between where I start around 4:30, depending on whether I stop for dinner or on the way home or not. It might be closer to 5 o'clock Central Time, and then I try to do this for about 90 minutes to 2 hours.
All right, if you get a chance on your way home from grabbing dinner, like pick me up some McDonald's too, so I don't have to do this. All right.
All right.
All right, peace, dude.
Yep.
Thank
good
you.
Talking to you again. But yeah, don't currently have any other guests. But real quick, just to answer your question, Deacon Blue, apologetics is a defense. It's not meant to be a way to keep believers in the faith or a way to convince non-believers. The way that I like to describe it is there's 3 types of questions. There's what do you believe? Or I guess I should say, what do I believe? Why do I believe it? Why should you believe it? And apologetics is the second one. It's just explaining to another what I believe and why I believe it. And it's not meant to convince another. It's not even meant to keep another person already in the faith to remain in the faith. It's just a way to provide information and clarity. And the term apologetics comes from Justin Martyr's Apologia, where he is offering a legal defense showing why Christianity isn't breaking any of the laws of the land and responding to objections. It wasn't meant to convince the non-believer to become a Christian, because it was sent to the Roman emperor who was a pagan, and it wasn't meant to keep his fellow Christians to remain Christian. It was a legal defense to someone who was outside of the faith, who was wondering and making false accusations against the belief. So it's a way of conveying the information in a clear way that outside individual can understand. But like I said, I think that is going to be it for today. Had lots of really good conversations today. I really enjoyed it. I did see that Ogar went live. So if anyone wants to go check him out, go give Ogar a rate. Tell him that Catholic Thinker sent y'all. Y'all have a good one.